Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Know the Rules of the Game. Life as College Zoomers, Take 2, Expectations versus Reality. I'm your host, Desirée Patno, Senior President of Women in the Housing Real Estate Ecosystem, NAWRB, and Desirée Patno Enterprises, Real Estate Brokerage, Advisor Investor for Amica's Brain Innovations, and Chief Strategic Officer for Zulu Time and publisher of Editor Magazine and the NAWRB Report. Today, we're so honored to have Nikki Courtney from UCLA and Veronica Cheng from UC Berkeley. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Great to be here.
They're like, yeah, right, in this craziness, right? So a fun fact that we'd like to talk about real quick is our Diversity Inclusion Leadership Council, what's going on in the country and the world. We created the 10 Women's Leadership Principles to help women in real estate and housing ecosystem become more effective leaders and empower other women to reach their full potential. So if you think about it, here we are, we have 2 college students who are at different schools, different academics, being leaders, really, in my opinion, for the college students and what it's like, you know, to bring it out in the open and openly discuss every day and what's going on. So thank you again for coming. So we had our Take 1 last month, almost a month to the day from today. And we had 3 rules. Those rules were take a deep dive on what your school is doing to be prepared, rule number 1. Rule number 2 is don't be afraid to be selfish. I really like that one due to the fact that what's going on is from a perspective of having a Zoom friend versus a in-person friend, we're gonna call it, and they still can be real. And then number 3 was how to look at new opportunities arising out of old ones as being inhibited. So let's see where we are before we go into rule number 3 for Take 2, Expectations versus Reality, you two, on what has changed from the first 3 rules from Take 1. And let's go ahead and start with Nikki. She's got the blonde highlights in her bedroom, trying to figure this all out. So let's go with Nikki. Go for it.
Yeah, so yet again, I go to UCLA, and from the last podcast that we were on, what has changed specifically for UCLA is that I did not get housing. Most people did not get housing because they previously were going to have 6,000 apartments and dorms for students, and now they reduced it to 1,000 just for homeless students, student athletes, and anyone who is in dangerous living situations. And then all classes now are online except for I believe it's 8% of classes. So basically everyone's online for fall quarter. Good news though is that they recently announced, or I've kind of got like inside scoop, I guess you can say, is that they are planning on opening in January if everything goes to plan.
There you go. So we got 3 more months and we can plan and we wait to 2 weeks before, we can figure it out then, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Veronica, you're on.
Hi, so I am back in Berkeley, just chilling most of my days.
I think that. Look at her room. I mean, check it out. Chilling.
With the gamer headset on and everything too. I think within the past month, not much has changed other than the fact that I've noticed how relaxed more people have become. Like I recently went onto campus and there were just like there were just like huge groups of people on like our campus lawn, and I guess yeah, they were distanced, but I think it's also just the fact that even if you have like social distancing and all that, if you have like multiple groups of people not wearing masks, it doesn't really do anything, in my opinion, because it's still going to spread through like the air, or I don't know, but it's just like people just don't really care as much up here, I think. I don't know, but in terms of classes, so I've already started classes starting since last Wednesday. I'm not sure if Nikki is taking summer classes or anything. But I think, you know, the professors are starting to get a hang of it. It's just the fact that, like, obviously Wi-Fi connectivity is such a huge issue. Like in one of my classes on Monday, the professor's Zoom just totally shut down, and like the rest of our class, like 44 students were just sitting and, you know, just awkwardly, you know, just waiting around. But I think like one of the good things that I've changed is like when that happens, it kind of gives like an icebreaker for a way for you to connect with the other students. So it's not like super like if we were in person, I would never have talked to any of them before. but
That's not, I don't want you.
yeah. But like because of that happened, like unfortunately, yes, it did happen. But at the same time, like the silver lining is that we got to, kind of just smooth things over and like talk about random things while we waited.
There you go. So let me ask it. Okay, so 2 points. One, you glossed over the fact that you're on school campus and you have large groups that are sitting in their pods on the grass.
Hmm.
And you said there was groups that didn't have a mask.
Yeah.
You said you felt uncomfortable. So did anyone from the school come out and say, hey, you all had to wear a mask, or because they were outside, they weren't mandatory to do it?
Yeah. I honestly haven't seen like any campus security um as of like as of the times I have been on campus or like around campus. So I don't really think they're really enforcing wearing masks. I feel like they should. Um, we are required to take like a little quiz every time we decide to step onto campus to like um, to basically talk about the symptoms, like fill in a survey. But I honestly don't think that people actually do it.
There you go. So you have the people who are either being proactive wearing a mask or
Mhm.
not wearing a mask or hanging out with people because if you think about it, could be related to being cool. When
Mhm.
smoke, okay, I'm cool because I smoke versus in my generation, or you did drugs, or what initiation that are you going to hang out with me, or are you going to be not strong enough that you can
Mhm.
can handle it? So what a pressure. So did it affect you when you walked by and saw these people, that if any of your friends or friends of friends that you knew that were in that group, that you would say, okay, well, they're now going to become, as you put it, a Zoom friend versus an in-person friend? Did it
Oh,
kind of
yeah, for sure. It's mostly just like I have seen people on Instagram where it's like, I know you don't live with those people, so I don't understand why, like, one day you're with this group and the next day you're with a different group. And it just doesn't really make sense to me because, like, their whole thing is like, oh, yeah, like, I'm not going to get sick. It doesn't matter. But the reason why they're even enforcing these rules is because you don't want to get other people sick by your recklessness. And it's just kind of ridiculous of how like self-centered a lot of people are in terms of like what's going on.
I think that's I think that's very well put. What's going down. So the second point that you had is you were talking about that the silver lining is that you actually talked to some people. So do you feel that it was when the professor's Zoom went down and you had 44 students there, was it someone took charge, or someone who was a jokester, or someone just came up and said it, or once someone broke the ice and everyone started talking? How did that work out?
So it was actually I was the one who was like, oh, so how was everyone's day going? And then like I do have a few friends that are also in the same class, so we all just started talking. And then so Zoom does this thing where if the host gets kicked off, then the next person is automatically the host. And out of nowhere, we're all doing like, oh, let's put some music while we wait or whatever. So we just started playing like the person who was playing music was playing like Cardi B and like whatever, and we were all just dancing and like someone was like, somebody do the TikTok trend or whatever. And then like when when the professor would pop back in, like all of us were just trying not to burst out laughing. And yeah, I think that was like a good experience in terms of like, you know, getting a laugh out of everyone, during these
But it
circumstances.
made it showed it was, think about it. If the professor didn't show up, you would
Yeah.
have left. But the
Yeah.
professor wasn't there. And so you took an opportunity to say who you are or what you were doing, or to get to know that everyone had a vibe to them. I mean, you
Mhm.
made a comment before we started the podcast about, or Zoom, a vodcast, they call it now, about someone being in Hong Kong at 3 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
having those different time schedules. And we forget that not everyone's on the West Coast. We could be on the East Coast. We could be in another country. We could be, and we don't even have, Nikki, you talked about, we can switch to you. You talked about, you started rattling and homeless in dangerous situations. And what was the third one?
Student athletes.
Athlete for schooling, for housing. I mean, how do you prove you're homeless? How do you prove that you are, athlete would be easy, but how do you prove that you're in a dangerous life situation, after all these things happen? And do you want people to know that? If you think about, people go to great lengths to not have that exposed. So how does that, relate?
Well, I think, I'll say this. Originally, for housing at UCLA, it was going to be primarily, when it was going to be 6,000 people, it was going to be mostly international students, to relay on the international note, because obviously international students are coming from all different countries, so there's no way that they're going to be all in the same time zone. Someone can be 3 a.m., someone could be 10 at night, someone could be 5 in the morning. It just depends. So then now they're saying no international students. I mean, it's not happening. So now it's homeless students, student athletes, and if you have a dangerous life situation. I think it's kind of sort of an invasion of privacy. I mean, it depends. If you really desperately need housing, you're going to fill it out no matter what. But it also could be you're going to be on campus with tons of other people in the same situation, so it might not necessarily be as such an invasion, because it's kind of the same community. You have the same hardship, you have the same you could have a similar background, so you could feel more connected and not an invasion of privacy. But I think for me, my classes haven't started yet. However, I already have homework to do on before. But some of my classes, we can go into this, some of my classes are going to be asynchronous, which means that they're going to just post all the assignments and you can do them as you would like, and they're just all due by the end of the quarter. Or some of them, they're having a hard regimented schedule where you have to show up at these times. And so I think it's going to be difficult for some students. And for example, for homeless students, well, if you're living on campus and if you don't have a lot of access to resources, how are you going to get a computer to be on campus for Zoom? How are you going to get food? Because now on UCLA campus, they're not going to have the food's not going to be open. You're either going to get prepackaged meals or you're going to have to go get food for yourself. So.
Very interesting. If you also think about, when you're talking about international students, I was just thinking to where, you have censored data in certain countries and you have access to whether they even can get out, or the bandwidth. Here in Irvine, we actually, at our headquarters, there's actually one street over from us where Edison actually has these humongous generators because the entire street shut down. They've been going on for a week. I can hear the generators running because the entire street has no power. So could you imagine not having power? I mean, I know, Veronica, you had no power there for a while. You couldn't even get on work. You couldn't even do this. So how would you even communicate, right?
Yeah.
So it adds to the stress. So thank you for getting us up to date to where we've been. So let's go take a deep dive into the take 2 expectations versus reality. Rule number 1, shorten expectations can lead to greater opportunities. I think that's exceptionally powerful. I'm going to start with you, Veronica, in the sense that, we have this, college is the only place to where you pay to go as far as education, where everything else is that it's mandated you go here in the United States to school, and yet you're paying to go to school for the experience and the communication and the lifestyle and the whole ambience to go with it. So that expectation, as you pointed out, as soon as you went to Berkeley, we're having it online, and all of a sudden 3 days later, boom, you're gone. A lot of people left. So how is that expectation turning out? And what do those new opportunities look like?
I think I've really, I guess in terms of expectations, it's mostly just I'm just glad that I can still get an education. At this point, I'm not oh yeah, my professor should know this and this and this. They're trying their best to, learn technology. All of this happens so quickly. And, it's not really fair when students kind of crap, talk bad on them and go oh, they need to figure this out, or whatever, who's keeping tally of how often they're, dropping out, right? Because it's the same thing could happen to you, and, your professor could decide not to be accommodating, but most of them are. And I guess it's just you kind of just have to, I guess, not lower your expectation, but kind of just expect it. I don't know if that is such a good way to put it. I think it definitely also has to do with your outlook on like this whole scenario as well. But in my case, it's more so of like, you know what, like I'm glad that I even have this at all, you know.
That's an excellent way of putting it. You're actually being very positive and saying, you know what, the opportunity could be that I have no school. And you're saying, hey, I'm just thankful that I have an opportunity that I have to actually continue my education, because otherwise it become dormant, right? And that's why they say, you know, take up a hobby, do something to go back to your childhood, to keep yourself motivated in some capacity that keep you excited. So the fact is that you're taking the stance to defend your professor, that the professors got to learn technology. Not all professors even know how to operate. Maybe have the same limitations as some of the students do, right? Might not have all the technology because they're a hands-on kind of professor versus than a virtual type of professor, right? I think that's excellent. I think that really shows that you have compassion and empathy that we talked about before on take one, on what that means to it. So thank you for, looking at most professors are older, and they have their own challenges, and you don't know what they're going through with their own children and their own families. And more importantly, if they're older, health conditions that go with it. So being in their mental shoes. So I would say for you, shortened expectations also has put yourself into their shoes. And that's what you put. I think is excellent. So Nikki, you're up.
So from my perspective, I am an incoming transfer student to UCLA. And so for me, I'm still trying to grapple with the positives and, find the positives, because a little background about me, I went to 1 year at community college and I had enough AP credit to transfer, and I'm already a junior. So I'm already a year ahead. So I only have 2 years, to make all this happen. So I really wanted, in my mind, it was like the ideal was, I'm going to be in a dorm, I'm going to be in a on-campus apartment, I'm going to have like, the college life, finally and stuff. And then this happens. So I'm still trying to find the positive in it. I would say for UCLA, the positive is they're really reaching out. They really care about the students, and they're having a lot of webinars and Zoom meetings to give more information, and also to be an active part of the campus. So for example, I thought was really cute is that the UCLA president, the student president, came up with this idea of a virtual residential hall. So normally, like, you do like a little quiz, like all the people on your hall are like this kind of the same interests as you, and so they're doing a virtual one where like you're putting all you're putting in your information. They're gonna like match make you with like friends and stuff, and then they're gonna like send you their information, and so that's how you can meet new people. So they are really trying to make the best experience out of this.
So you're gonna become a dating app for friends in college.
Yes, like, so basically, because when you fill out like a dorm room, you have to talk about all your interests and like what you like to do, and so you're kind of doing that, and then they're going to be like, hey, this person has the same interest in you, here's the phone number if you want to talk to them. So they're kind of like matchmaking you to friends, I guess you could say, which I think is a really like creative idea. It's virtual.
Well, I think it's actually kind of cool because, but at the same time, I like Veronica's thing because it forced you to get involved into a group of people that you might not have met because you didn't have the same interests, but at the same time, different cultures, different ideologies of life, right? Because, we're all about diversity right now. We're all about, what's going on in systemic racism and impact and political views and global warming, and we could go on through that whole list. So being open to hear other people's thoughts and processes and not like you can also be very interesting too. So I like both, but I think the same idea is that by having an opportunity to say, hey, those who want to stand up and talk about love the interaction, little girls, would like to talk about, let's say I'm interested in hockey, or I'm interested in this kind of sports, or I'm interested in, what's going on here. Who would like to join me in that call? And what they're doing with Zoom calls right now. Hey, little girl, you want to come join us? Come here, come on. Let's get on the podcast. Let's see how pretty you are to everyone so they can see who is making all this little noise. So we have Callista here. Can you say hi to the girls? Say hi. We're going to be quiet now so we can talk on our know the rules of the game, as that means we got to be quiet, little girl. All right, so yes, I'm going with it. So this is really an opportunity to open up the horizons to go with it. Okay, cool. So next one, number 2, not all teachers and programs are the same. Find a workaround. So rule number 2, Veronica, you talked about teachers to where they're, trying, and some might have difficulties and some are better. Let's talk about what's going on in the nation. We hear about where some teachers in schools are taking a about face and shutting things down. We talked about, you had a friend in New York. Nikki had talked about New York, brought up some very serious issues. And then Veronica, you have a friend that goes there. So elaborate a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm not too close to her, but she's a year younger than I am, and basically she's kind of been live tweeting about all the problems that NYU has, um, you know, like that's been occurring. And one of them is the fact that, first of all, they don't have enough room to house all the students, and when they do, they all have to quarantine in dorms, but then they're not allowed to have guests even if they're quarantined in the same building, or like some people are getting different quarantine meals, or some of their meals are missing overall. And it's just kind of like, I think the administration is also just not answering their questions and aren't really doing that great of a job for being there for students. And so she's just been really frustrated with everything. And, I feel bad for her and for everyone that's going through it, because I think Nikki also talked about things that have been going on with NYU. I'm not like too sure, like I don't really know like in depth of what's going on. So if Nikki feels like she wants to elaborate, then go for it.
Why don't you give a format of what's going on with NYU?
Yeah, so basically all these students are being quarantined. They have to be quarantined within the dorms while they're like, they all went in, got their COVID test, and now they're quarantining to double check, like, before if they either got positive or negative results for the COVID test. And what's happening is NYU, I believe, is working with a like third party food company that's like sending like these prepackaged meals to the doors. But it's really concerning because, for example, vegans are getting chicken sandwiches, and that's the only meal they're getting in the entire day. Some people are literally just getting a bag of chips and a banana, and the banana is moldy. Some people are getting moldy cheese. It's just not working out well, and I can't imagine paying that much money to go to NYU, especially since like I would have been an out-of-state student, to get that type of treatment. And it's hard to live on, like if they didn't give you a meal, it's kind of hard, and you can't go outside because you're quarantined. What do you do? And no one's answering the phone. Like that would really suck, because you need to food, for example, food really fuels your mental health and like your mental state. And I feel like if you didn't have food, how are you going to do good in school? How are you going to
So my question to you is, how much does the cost go to NYU, you said?
I believe it's $75,000 or higher.
So we go back to the impact. You as a student, you as your family or sponsor, scholarships that you might have been gotten, or grants, to your siblings, to who else is work to get you into that position, right? Versus then those who maybe are financially secure, that it's just a drop in the bucket. At the same time, you are your most pivotal time in your life of being in your 20s, from teenagers to the early 20s, to deal with your career, your positioning. This is what you're supposed to be for the next 20 years before you might have another career change. So one of the things that we're really trying to do here with Take Two is expectation versus reality, is say, if we could look at what's happening across the nation, of how many colleges are cracking down, and how many students are having withdrawals, and what's going on, and how do they react to, do you spend the focal time? Because if you're going to school and you expect this excitement to be in school, I mean, you alluded to this earlier, Veronica, about the pressure of being in school, of being able to study there, versus then being in Nikki's position where you see her bed above her, and how do I study if she was in the hallway? Not everyone's going to say, okay, I'll study and have a bed above me and have a desk below me. And then what if you're in an environment to where your desk is out in the middle of the hallway in a one studio apartment, and you have multiple kids in there because you have a college student, an elementary student, and an infant, let's say, right? Your concentration Do you have complete headsets like Veronica right now? Actually, we can hear her where we couldn't before when we started the podcast. Do you have sound barriers that actually hear it to where you can't hear anymore? Are you able to physically exercise to get all the endorphins out of your body to run and go and do things to say, okay, I'm excited now. Let me get into my school mode and let me be creative. Like I know I can't write well and be creative if I'm not in the pocket. And to be in the pocket means you have to be attentive. So what are some things that you're finding that you're on campus, even though you're not taking classes in person, Veronica, that you might be able to share with our colleague Zoomers? And I'll go back to you, Nikki.
Like I mentioned, it's mostly just the fact that I walked by many people who don't wear masks. And even if, like, what boggles me the most is that sometimes they don't even move out of the way. They just walk by you as if like everything is normal, and it just puts you into a spot like, okay, like what am I supposed to do? Like, do I dodge them? Do I cross the street? And it's also, just like even going on campus with like hordes of people, and it's just like, how are you guys so comfortable with being able to, jump from group to group and not have like a worry about anything? I think it just kind of like they just don't really acknowledge the privilege they have. That's pretty much most of the things I've noticed, other besides like the whole professor things and like being able to connect with people in your class that you would have never talked to before. But I think what's most important is also trying to think of, like, Berkeley has a lot of homeless people up here. Um, and especially like now it just kind of sucks that, they're also trying to like, but obviously they have no place to go. And I think what people need to do is kind of just be more compassionate. I don't know. In my opinion, I think it's just more important to view them as human beings and not just like you're going to walk past them and ignore them, right? The least you could do is if you have like a spare mask or anything, like, just give it out to them, like, things like that.
Well, it sounds like to me that you really, the identity crisis is still there, that because they physically can't see damaged buildings or natural disasters or see physically differences, that they're still acknowledging there are no differences because the body and the mind's not processing the differences to go with it. So thank you. So Nikki, you're at home, and you had some very hard struggles you took yesterday to say that, okay, I need to take a self-care day to get a hold of my professors and get a hold of people because I don't have a counselor that I can go to. I don't have, people that deal in the financial department. I don't have people that I can actually talk about my, my registration because I haven't started school yet. How's that been? That I'm sure that's happened across the United States, world probably.
I think it has, and I think, for example, I think one of the biggest issues with that, and the reason why it's happening, for example, at UCLA, is because we have a lot of students. There's over 45,000 students, including graduate students. So I understand that, for example, financial aid cannot let you call them all the time because they have to get through all the financial aid award packages and figure out what's happening, especially with government grants and etc. So I understand, but it's also very frustrating as I think I can relate to incoming students, no matter if you're transfer or a freshman, because I've had 1 year experience at community college. However, it's nothing like going to UCLA and going to four-year college now, and so I'm kind of still like a deer in headlights and trying to get used to the whole atmosphere. And so I really wanted to have some guidance and be able to contact everyone and figure it out, and it hasn't been going as, I guess you could say, planned. So it's been stressful. And I would just say to other college Zoomers, what I found the most helpful is that if you find other ways around it. So for example, I could not call financial aid and they would not talk to me on the phone, which would be better to have a personal conversation. So I kept emailing them over and over again, contacting them all the time. I've been trying to contact different counselors, and I've been emailing. For example, I've had I've been trying to get my transcript updated. I've been emailing the transcript center. So, you just have to keep like working around it and like, find other ways. Maybe, email might not be the best, but if email is going to work, it's going to work. You just got to go with the flow.
So let's put some tally numbers here. How many times have you called and how many times have you emailed?
Financially, I've probably emailed more than 10 times. Like we've had discussion one-on-one. I would say the good thing about UCLA is that they do answer really quickly and they do really care about students. So I really appreciate that. And then for the transcript center, a couple times back and forth, maybe like 4 or 5 times. And sometimes it's vague information they give back because they can't give anything yet until like they actually see, my information. And sometimes like they can give really specific things. So I feel like don't give up, and you have to keep, like, if they're not giving you the answers you need, keep pushing and keep asking for specific questions, because eventually it's going to get to someone in the department or someone in the center that's going to be able to answer it.
So my suggestion to that is, for everyone listening and as we circulate through, is the more you can give and paint a story. This is like whether you're buying a house, this is what you're buying anything. If you can paint the most detailed story and articulate it in block form of the purpose, what you need to do and how to get it done, and this is all my information, so they have everything, because the last thing you want to do is go through that whole cycle and send everything you think you have. Well, you already have my email from the 10th time ago. Stack it together so that way, not just in the trail of the email, and make sure you keep the chain alive, but you want to make sure that you have your whole story. So you're adding to your story. Keep the most current stuff at the top, but you have your whole story, so that way they can look at the entire information. Because you think that if you say there's 45,000 students at UCLA, guess what? You expect them to remember who you are and like Nikki 500, right? So you want to make sure that everything you do, this is your time as an opportunist to say, I need to sell myself, my entire story. My little girl's twitching on me here. My entire story on why I need what I need. This is who I am. This is my personal information. This is what I need from you. And this is what I've done so far. And this is who I spoke to. So every time you talk to someone, who did you speak to? When did you speak to them? What was the outcome? Date, time, stamp, everything. And that way they have a whole log and they go, okay, she did this. Okay, she did this. Because the most important thing that happens during these things like this in non-COVID times is that they don't understand that you already got sent to 5 different departments. You already did it. And your time is your money. Your time is your I'm not gonna say money anymore. Your time is your ability logistically to get what you need to get done, right? So make sure the more accurate information, the more log you have. So get a Bible, write your entire information down, keep it organized. So that way when you do, whether it's financial aid, whether it's classes you're taking, whether it's information you get from your friends. And I told Veronica this, 3 weeks ago, I want a log. I want a log of what makes you happy and I want a log what makes you not happy on the pros and cons of college, because the more we can help our Zoomers, the better off we all are. All right, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so rule number 3 to wrap up, take care of your mental health, and tomorrow's another day. So how is that? I believe all of us need a mental health check, and I believe all of us in today's world need friends, family, and support systems, because there's not going to be a day where you're going to go up, or an hour or a month might go by to where you need that extra hug or that extra love. And okay, if we're supposed to be social distancing, how are we going to get that virtual hug? And I would like to hear from you, Nikki, first, on what is it that you think that you could help others that might have helped you? I mean, I always say, remember that one note that really has that special song that just makes me go, yeah! What is that to you? And how can we give him a special tip?
So I think for me, as I was talking about, I've been having some struggles of contacting people. I'm still kind of a deer in headlights. I'm trying to figure it all out as I go. It's a new process for me. So it has been stressful. And I think number 1 is that it's important to acknowledge, sometimes we'll be like, we're just making this, we feel bad about ourselves, and we're like, oh, you know what, I'm just not working hard enough, and this is why it's not working out, so I need to keep pushing through. And I feel like I've had to realize throughout this experience, no, I'm working as hard as I can. I cannot change how other people are responding. I can't change what's going on. I need to just take a break and rewind, and relax. Like, I can't control everything. And I feel like that's a big issue. And I think with college students too, like, we always want, like, students who are super academically rigorous and, want to get there and have their goals and passions. They want to, like, they're on top of everything. And so it's hard when you're trying to do everything and then it stops, and you can't go any farther. So I think acknowledging that, yes, it's okay. You're doing as much as you can. You need to take a break. And I think, I took a self-care day, a mental relaxation day break. And I just watched my favorite videos. I listened to my favorite music just to wind down. Do not think about it. Like, one day or a couple hours, whatever you can work with, just don't think about it. Just have fun and, get it off your mind, because you're going to have to deal with it, some other time fully. So that's what I would say.
I love it, because basically you're saying control what you control, but don't stress about what you can't control.
Yes.
It's so important. And I think, I don't care how old we are, I don't care what our experiences have been through, we need to be reminded of the basic 101. So thank you for that. Veronica, you.
I agree. Just to not stress over things you can't control. I also think, sometimes if you really need to, it's okay to skip a class.
Already. How long have you been in school? Okay, so we're ditching now college Zoomers. You don't have to attend. Oh, but a fake dummy of who we are, animated body, who's our animated team. Let's get them on there. Thank you. Go ahead, Veronica.
I lost my train of thought.
You're real. You're human.
Taking a day.
If things are recorded, sometimes it is really stressful on your body as well, physically, to be sitting in front of a laptop for like hours and hours, and it just really leaves like a bad like feeling in you. And it's just like, sometimes you just need to take the weekend to recharge, like turn off your phone, even if you like, I'm sure like during these times your friends would understand if you don't respond to their texts right away. It's just really important to, do self-love and self-care, whether it means like doing a face mask, watching TV, like baking cookies or something like that. And, even during COVID, I think, I guess in relation to what's going on with the post service, like if you really want to connect and reach out with people, like by all means, you should write handwritten letters or something, kind of put that extra effort.
There, but that's okay, Veronica.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Like put that extra effort into, showing somebody that you care about them.
Can I add on to that?
Yeah.
Please.
I think what you meant is, like, for example, some lectures, they'll have the live lecture and then you can see the recording later. So that could obviously, like, that would be a pro for international students who not do the time. And I think, for example, like a tip you could do that I do sometimes if a lecture's recorded, either I'm like reviewing or I couldn't make it so I missed it, is if I'm just getting ready for bed, or I'm just brushing my teeth, washing my face, doing my thing, I'll just listen to the lecture. If it's just like listening, I'll just listen to it. So I'm literally super relaxed. I'm just getting ready for bed, and actually I feel like I'm absorbing more information just because I'm not like stressing out about it. I have a pen and paper and like freaking out about like writing notes and stuff. So yeah.
I like that, because you don't have to listen to the whole lecture either. And the more times you listen to something, and especially if it's a voice that you're okay with, and you want to learn more, because remember, you're paying to go to school to learn that information. I think one of the things that we got to be very careful about is that, well, why am I ever going to use, trigonometry again? Or am I going to use, derivative of limits in calculus or something, or I'll never use this again. I'm a firm believer that everything you learn in school at some point in your life, you're either going to use a functionality of it, maybe not a direct derivative of it, but what you need to go show your work, like as a math major with my fourth son, or doing something that's going to say that, why is this particular workaround going to be make better? We are all in that environment that if we're having 60% of all the jobs are going to be completely new, then that environment's going to make things. And I think Chadwick, rest his soul, the Black Panther gentleman, he had a great thing. he says, I'm glad I took the hard route. I'm glad I had all the challenges because it made me a better actor and it made me understand the purpose of what I need to show on screen to have, you know, the Jackie Robinson, you know, to do that, and then to do the Black Panther and do all the incredible great, I mean, in his short term of being a star, he did some of the most iconic movies that are out there. And then to still take care of those children that were dying of colon cancer, and he communicated with them during the Black Panther shooting of it. So he was able to keep his hardened challenges that he was grieving through personally, not telling a soul except his really close intimate circle, and then also to help them and yet still portray that struggle on screen. So I think that the most important thing that we can tell everyone right now as a tip is that these struggles, these opportunities to really change, well, what can I do to make my day better? And if I can't think of something today, tomorrow's another day. And that I might have to check out, hey, hi, hey, boyfriend, how you doing back there? Got college Zoomers, got to bring it to get on the color. Is that we had 4 boys, so I got it, girl. I got it. It's a matter of how we connect our integration of making sure that we don't think of it end all be all that we're doing a college, you know, on a Zoom, because this too will pass. Maybe not quick like we like, but maybe a little longer. That just means we have to develop deeper, stronger ways to adjust as we move forward. So with that being said, anything we would like to take 2 on expectations versus reality, Nikki, that you would like to sign off with, that is something that we didn't talk about that you've read in the news that you're like, wow, I can't believe it.
Well, okay, so I'll first say what's happening in the news. I'll give like my last little, tidbit. I think, for example, for UCLA, I think the reason why the president or the people working there said that we might be opening up in January is because the fact is that LA County is having the most cases, I believe, in California in total, and so they're taking great precautions, and it's required to wear a mask, and if you don't wear a mask, you're heavily shamed, and you could potentially be facing penalties. And so I think that's the reason why. I think having less college students is going to be on the campus is going to be beneficial for the long term, which I think other campuses should do. And I think throughout the U.S. and on the national level, a lot of students are facing the fact that they just got, because most colleges started like August 20th to the 30th. So most college students got there, and then there was a rise in cases such as George Washington, Notre Dame, and other schools, and so they all had to go home. And so now I can't even imagine dealing with the fact that you got there, you're like, okay, yay, okay, I'm like one of the few students who can go, and then you're sent back home. And so I think my last tip, what I would mention is that please don't give up. I'm having to learn that I can't give up, and even though there's hard times and I cannot contact anyone, I'm trying to figure out all on my own, I can't give up, because what does that make? What does that do? I'm not going to be prepared in the future, when I actually have to show up and I'm accountable for showing up and responsible, because there's no more COVID anymore. And so I think it's really important not to give up and make sure you use all the resources at your school, because, for example, even though for me, I couldn't contact financial aid directly or the transcript center, etc., I was able to constantly email them and finally get a response. So that's what I would say.
Well, the thing is that the stronger you are now, it just shows you're going to be better prepared than I was when I went to school, because I didn't have the strength to go through all this stuff, and the resources you have are incredible. So thank you for that. Veronica, close us out.
Yeah, I think I would definitely agree with Nikki in terms of don't give up. And also I would just reiterate to not stress about things you can't control, and also to be more compassionate for the elder professors who have to, readjust to learning technology.
Great. Well, I don't think it needs to be even just center based on older people. You still have, people that are your age that don't use technology. I know some people that don't use social media and don't even utilize their utilization of their phone. So
yeah,
it's just a reality that the biggest thing is don't expect someone to be as gifted as you are of using something, or that they're going to use and do everything like you would do it. I've heard that said too many times. You multitask too many things too fast, but well, doesn't everyone do that? No, they don't, you know, so you have to break it down. So something cool that happened to us today, everyone who's watching us for our college Zoomers, we're going to have this every single month. We're going to have Nikki and Veronica come back, but we're also looking to have other colleges that could join us and expand this to have a delegate for every single college and university across the United States. We really want to have incredible dialogue to find out what's going on in your school and how we can make it and help your, not only for your school, but other people have different circumstances that are within your school, because it's not universally the same experience within a school. It's going to be your own dynamic, your own culture, your own, you know, circumstances that are going to be particular to your school, but it could be the same as, say, someone else in another state or another school systems that's going to happen. So if you'd like to be part of us, you got Nikki out there doing business development. You've got Veronica out there doing social media for here, relationships here at NAWRB. We'd love to have you part of our podcast, to be part of the College Zoomers. And so thank you all very much. I am Desirée Patno, your host here at Know the Rules of the Game for the podcast. And so we're going to do take 3 next month and continue this on a monthly basis. So thank you both for joining us this morning, and let's do this. All right, so NAWRB.com, and take care, and thank you very much. And let's see what happens next month, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, thank you. All right, have a good one. All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.